I call this special meeting of Madeira Beach Board of Commissioners to order at 2:01 p.m. Will clerk call the roll?
Commissioner Deltra.
Present.
Commissioner or Vice Mayor Andrews.
Here.
Commissioner Price. Here. Commissioner Hodges.
Here.
Mayor Hendricks.
Here. Before we have public comment, I was just informed that one of our volunteers that has been a volunteer for quite a while with the city, Mr. Ron Howard, has passed away. And I'd like to have a moment of silence for him before we start the meeting. Amen. City Manager, will you read any public comments?
We didn't receive any public comment emails.
Okay, City Clerk, will you read the
Mr. Mayor, before we get started, can I just make a suggestion? Since we have a pretty light agenda, I'd like to add a discussion item involving a meeting that I watched online, the auditor selection meeting. I just want to get some clarifications on some things that I saw, and I don't think it can wait because there is another meeting of that same group coming up this week. I'd just like to discuss it and make sure that I'm clear on what went on and what went forward. So if it pleases the board, I'd like to make that agenda item C.
That's acceptable to me.
Yes.
Okay, agenda topics. Will the clerk please read the first resolution?
Resolution 2020-09, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, promulgating an emergency order granting the approval of a citywide special event order and authorizing the city manager to approve, monitor, regulate, and revoke said special event permit in part or in whole, in which businesses and restaurants may receive waivers in regard to use of the City of Madeira Beach right-of-way, assisting their operations for a temporary time frame and providing for an effective date.
Is there any discussion on this?
No.
Okay, may I have a motion?
Yeah, actually, I'd just like to, oh, go ahead, John.
I've got a question. Okay. Who, if they're out in the right of way and someone gets hurt, is that under the insurance of the city or under insurance of the establishment? Whose insurance policy is going to be liable if someone does get hurt?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I'll answer that the best I can. In any type of a lawsuit situation involving city right-of-way, we're going to get sued, and I would assume they would take action against the entity that was out in the right-of-way as well. Was out in the right.
So it's no different than if someone tripped over a curb out there.
That's correct.
So what I'm understanding, you're saying that you don't really know who would be liable for this. Is that correct?
Well, liability would be the entity at first, but it wouldn't preclude us from getting sued. Usually people sue because they're looking for monetary damages, and the liability factor in a civil court is open for the interpretation of either the jury or the judge, depending on the particular case. But, you know, anybody can sue for anything, and unfortunately with the city, we're going to get sued whether we do something or not. You know, if somebody was to, bump into somebody and they could claim our sidewalk was too small, or if there was a defect in the sidewalk or something. So
And they
What
would be
is-
able to do
what is
that
our-
whether there's a restaurant open or a table there or not, right? If they're on the right-of-way, we're going to be called as a party, period. Generally. I mean, if you,
I
like you
would
said,
think
if you
so,
trip on the
yes.
sidewalk,
Yeah.
you're going to sue the city.
What-
It's almost like now we have somebody else to help shoulder some of that burden
Yeah.
in the restaurant.
Well, you can trip
I
over.
understand what you're saying. Anybody can sue anybody. That is a given. But what are we hearing from our attorney? And what are we hearing? We checked with our insurance companies on this. That's, I think, is what we need to be looking at, is the liability if someone does get hurt. God forbid anyone would get hurt, but if someone does, what is the direction our attorney's giving us, and what's the direction that our insurance company is giving us?
I didn't check with the insurance company. Our interim city attorney asked to look at the resolution, and I supplied it to him, and this particular topic didn't come up at all. My assumption is it's our regular liability that we're going to have anyhow.
Is Ralph on the phone? Or
I don't know.
did we get anything from him regarding this?
Ralph?
Did anyone send him the resolution for him to review?
I think I sent it to both. I'm sorry. I believe I sent it to both Ralph and Mr. Trask had asked to see it, so I shared it with him. And he had some comments to make some modifications, and I don't believe I heard from Ralph.
I just feel that we should hold off on this until we hear from our insurance company, until we hear from our attorney.
I think time is of the essence.
Yeah, I agree. I've got actually, just in true transparency, when this topic was posted, I had a concerned resident infer to me that I should abstain from voting on it because I'm a business owner. And, honestly, I take stuff like that very seriously. So, but for the record, the fact that my business is not going to be affected positively or negatively by this proposal. So not only do I think it's acceptable for me to cast a vote, Mr. Mayor, I also think as a business owner in town, I can offer some critical insightfulness on what type of strain this pandemic has put on my fellow business owners. If anyone on the commission thinks we should examine this deeper, I'm sure the mayor would be happy to entertain your motion, and I'll be happy to discuss further. But I just wanted to put that out there. The other part, in essence, I think not only is this a brilliant idea, it's also the right thing to do here. Losing 50-odd consecutive days in a resort town is bad enough for most of these businesses. The fact that it fell during spring break makes it, in some cases, fatal. There's other towns doing different things. Cities like Tarpon Springs and St. Pete and Largo are offering grants to their businesses. We did not, nor given our current financial situation, should we. But, this is our way to help out without doing anything more than lifting a restriction and assisting these businesses with the strict social distancing mandate. I know pushback's going to be this is a bad idea because people will take advantage of it, and some people probably will try to. The pushback will be that, you buy a six-pack and you sit on a residential street or go to a restaurant with your own alcohol. Some people will probably try to do this. But no, I think, and we're following suit here. We've seen Tampa's doing something very, very similar to this, an economic recovery zone. And it kind of fits in exactly what we're doing. We're talking about zones, right? I mean, I think that's what we're talking about here, right? So our city's already zoned. So this only applies for commercial zones, okay? It's not R1, R2, R3. People are not going to be walking down your street, slugging a 40, all right? This is strictly reserved for the fact that we want to spread people out and we want to make sure that we do our part, okay, while everybody is fighting through this together and we are restricting the amount of people that can be in certain establishments. So all I can say is, if we can't walk out and help these guys physically do it, we might as well do everything we can to make sure that we can keep these businesses sustained, because this is the heart of this town. So I'm 1,000,000% for this, 1,000,000% for this.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to pass Resolution 2020-09.
Pass resolution.
I'll second.
City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Price,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges,
Yes.
Commissioner Andrews,
Yes.
Commissioner Douthert, Commissioner Douthert,
Commissioner, are you still there? Yes, I voted no. You voted no.
yes, sir. Mayor Hendricks,
Yes. Okay, the motion carries 4-1. Okay. Clerk, will you call the second resolution, please? Read the second resolution.
yes, sir. Resolution 2020-10, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, promulgating an emergency order granting the approval of rent waiver and payment deferral for two businesses that have a business relationship with the City of Madeira Beach and providing an effective date.
Okay, this issue is open for discussion.
Mr. Mayor? Sorry. I did notice one correction in here, and I think when it was, went through some revisions, it got messed up. So if I may, can I direct you to Section 1? And Section 1 should just be involving Fantasy Planet. It has Snack Shack in here, they've already been taken care of. And so if you can change where it says the and two, it should be one and should be business instead of businesses. And it should be Fantasy Planet and then strike and Snack Shack and. I apologize for that problem, but I just noticed that as I was reading.
That's actually, it's been stricken on mine.
Yeah, it's already been,
Okay, I guess I have the wrong one then. Sorry about that. But I just wanted to make sure, if I may, I did receive a call from Moisha, our tenant over in Fantasy Planet, and he was appreciative of the rent for April. He's still having some tough times, so he made the request for if we can get another month. I told him can't guarantee them anything because we've only been authorized to do 1 month. So I wanted to bring that up to you. And then under Section B, which is saltwater destination, when we took the action we did with the $1,000, I think, which is what we figured the 12 months of their rent would be, we didn't take into account their contract. Their contract actually calls for a $7,500 payment every 6 months. And then at the end of each year's period, there's an additional $3,000 payment minimum that they have to pay, and it's kind of a scale based on what their income was for the year. So if they have a good year, that would increase. Obviously, this is not going to be a good year for them. And they've spent about $40,000 getting all new equipment when their contract started 6 months ago. And that's why with the situation with COVID-19, they've got probably another $50,000 that they're in the hole. So they're not asking for us to give them $7,500. They just want a forbearance of the payment that was due May 1st, and they would like to split it up over the next 4.5 years. Every 6 months, pay whatever that appropriate amount is. I didn't do the calculation here, but I had it in me on my notes. But so they'd basically be paying extra $7,500 over the tenure of their agreement with us.
So that's in addition to the $7,500 they will be paying on down the road?
Yes, so it'll just go on to each one of those 6-month payments, and they'll still, all the remainder items. And what I'm basically asking is the authority to go in and do an addendum to the agreement with them, and then I'll bring that whole addendum back to you to vote as a commission. But, you know, right now they're in default because it was due on the 1st, and I sort of felt the temperature of this commission would be that we would like to work with them. And again, they're not asking for a handout, they're just asking to postpone paying back that $7,500.
Yeah. For me, I have no problem with that.
I think 4.5 years is a bit long.
Well, that's just the life of their contract, but they'll agree, you know, this is kind of what we looked at, but if you want it to start a year from now and they pay it back over 2 years, I mean, they're open to anything. They just need help right now.
That's what I was
Right.
thinking more along that line, because 75,000 divided by 4, and that would be over a 2-year span. And just let's forgive this for now and let it start next year.
Well, there's a difference of forgiveness and forbearance. Forbearance
forbearance,
is,
yeah, let's not-
they still owe the money,
Right.
but we're going to give them terms on paying the money back. And if those terms are more acceptable to be over, you know, year 2 and year 3, I mean, I'm sure they would be happy just so they can get out from underneath having to pay it right now.
So how are we handling this past month? Is
Well-
that being deducted out of $7,500 for a 6-month period?
Well, right now, they're late in the 6-month payment, the $7,500. So if you grant this part of the resolution, then, you know, we can revise the resolution and have it back in written form to you. But if you grant it today, then they wouldn't have a payment for another 6 months, but that payment is geared to be $7,500, and then it'd be 1/4 of their regular payment if we did it over 2 years versus 4 years. If it's 4 years, it'd be, I think, 1/8 if I might.
Right, about $950
Right.
added to each 6-month payment.
So my question still is, though, rather than $7,500 on a 6-month payment, is 1 month, is 1/6 of that being forgiven?
No.
Okay.
No, I think our first action, Walt, would we take action on the $1,000? Because they didn't really have any money in, it was all dealt with this, correct? Yes. Okay, so yes, they haven't been forgiven anything. even though we were authorized to do that before, but when we went in and looked at the contract, we saw that it's really $7,500 that was due May 1st, not like a normal payment would be, should it be rent or, you know, different concessionaire agreements would maybe have a monthly payment, but this one was set up a little bit different so they could get the equipment that they needed, and you know, their business is seasonal, you know, as we know, and. Okay. So the commission can still do that if you want, and we can, you know, give them, you know,
Well,
1/6 of it.
It would be $1,250 off of one of the $7,500 bills is what it would amount to.
I think that would be a nice gesture, my personal opinion.
I do too. That's what I thought we were
I
kind
thought
of
we had
doing.
already voted on that.
Yeah, I'm not
so-
sure that's a nice gesture. I think we've already voted on that. and
Well, we
approved
did,
it.
but
Okay,
it kind
so
of
I-
got messed up with this, so.
Okay, well, I'm okay with section 2 because it's math. I mean, we're just trying to figure out, they're not trying to get out of payments, we're
No.
trying to figure that out. So I'm good with that. Section 1, I'm not okay with. It's first week of May, we are slowly opening for business. It was a very generous offer of us to waive, how much was Moshe's rent?
I think it was.
7,500?
No, his, I think, was 1,200, Moishe's rent currently.
It's only $1,200?
Is it? Okay. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I can get that number for you, but,
Yeah, I mean, I got no problem. I mean, we waived the first month. I think that was more than, more than generous of the city to do. We weren't asked to do that. May's open. I mean, we still have Memorial Day ahead of us. Yeah, I'm not okay with section 1, but I'm okay with section 2 as long as the math works out.
well, if I may, just, April was the rent that he was forgiven, okay? So his May rent is actually due May 1st. I know you may mention to Memorial Day, but that's, you know, towards the end of the month, but I'm just trying to clarify it, that's all. I just want to make sure you understand what I'm saying.
I mean, we can defer it a couple
Well, we
weeks.
closed on March 17, right? We closed
Yes.
the bars and restaurants. I don't know if we closed all the stores then.
Well,
So-
originally, we went into the essential businesses, but then the beach closed, and really, for all intents and purposes, you know, the village closed within a week of that, I
Yeah, it was
believe.
pretty much everything at that point. But
So he had the first part of March
he paid.
in business.
Correct.
And
we-
I don't want every boat in the marina now to come try to get a second month out of us.
And that's,
And everybody else, right? Because that's what this is going to start.
yeah, and I'm on board with, I had the same feelings on that I think we've been very generous on giving a month's rent, and I don't see giving a second month's rent. I think we're opening a whole set of new issues if we do that.
I wouldn't have a problem if he needed to make payments on it. Not over 4.5 years, but if you,
Well,
you
could
know, just add whatever.
if you give me the authority to work out something with them over the remainder of this year and paying that 1 month back, is that something that's acceptable, or?
Yes, it would be for me.
Whoa. Okay, I stand corrected. It's a lot more expensive. It's $10,480. So thank you. I'm sorry. So I'll do whatever y'all want me to do, and I will, future requests, I'm just going to say we're not going to accept future requests if we do get other interest. But if you want me to work with them and try to spread that out over a couple months,
I'm okay with that.
I'm certainly okay with that.
Yeah, we could spread that out.
Agreed.
okay.
And then the same with saltwater destination. Whatever makes sense. If we just want to make an addendum to the contract or something, so we have something.
Right, that's what I would do, and it'd be the same thing
Instead of
with the lease for
7,500,
Fantasy Planet.
yeah.
I'd make an amendment to it, and I'll bring that back to y'all so you can vote on it, but at least they're, you know, we know we're not going to get it on the 1st, and, you know, we'll work with them.
Yeah, that's fine, but let's just make sure too, they get a credit for the month of April that we've already They were
Yes.
already granted? Okay, thank you.
I'll make sure.
Okay. Okay, do I have a motion?
Can I just add the caveat with the changes that we made? I don't know if you want to spell them out again, but I'll redo the resolution and, I'll get with you all to,
Yeah, and we need to give these people some closure or an answer, I would say. So I'll try to formulate a motion.
Okay.
I motion we pass Resolution 2020-10 with the change that for Fantasy Planet, we do not forgive 1 month's rent for April. However, we authorize the city manager to work with Fantasy Planet in paying that out over the rest of the year.
Excuse me, I think that's for May. I think April has already been forgiven, is that correct?
that's correct.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
I missed that, sorry.
Yeah, I read the wrong line. So correction to that is, I would like to make a motion that we pass Resolution 2020-10 with the change that Fantasy Planet does not get a waiver of rent for the month of May 2020, but we authorize the city manager to work with Fantasy Planet in paying that off over time, and that entity will not be penalized for not paying May 1st. And basically the same thing with Section 2, saltwater destination. We will forgive them any prorated monies that were due for the month of April, and then for the required payments that they make every 6 months, we're certainly able to defer, is that the word?
Yes, defer.
Defer that, and we authorize the city manager to negotiate and make appropriate changes to their contract.
And I'll second.
Okay, before we have a roll call on this, were there any public comments on this?
No, there were not.
Okay. City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Price,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges,
Yes.
Commissioner Douther,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Andrews,
Yes.
Mayor Hendricks,
Yes. Motion carries 5-0. Okay. Item C. Mr. Andrews, would you like to take the floor on this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is going to take a little while, because I made quite a few notes on this, and I just want to make sure that I'm getting it correct, and I'm going to take my time and kind of walk through it. I don't know if any of you saw this audit review committee meeting that was on Thursday. I didn't know that, I knew this committee was established because I know that Commissioner Douther was named to it, but I couldn't find minutes on it, and I was looking through the website, and I was the only commissioner not on the selection committee, so I'm not exactly sure when it happened, so maybe clearing up that would kind of be a good starting point. This seemed to be, when I looked at this, and then I looked at the people involved and was going through it and listening, the first thing that struck me was we have a bid committee, and we haven't used the bid committee for, the purchase of the generator or the enterprise rent-a-car contract or the marina audit or the citywide security system or the $197,000 for the consultant on Crystal Island. I mean, I can go on, but it's not like they were overworked and we needed, a separate committee to handle this. And honestly, to me, this should be, and probably always has been in the past, a simple administration task of choosing a vendor using an RFP. So I don't understand why a committee was going to be needed for that. So first and foremost, when I looked at it, I also said, this is an RFP. And I don't know if it was a special RFP or anything like that, but it was an RFP. Okay, and I've been out of the game here for 2.5 years or so, so I may be a little off, but to me an RFP in a nutshell is you set your criteria, okay, you set out the task at hand, and then you accept sealed bids until a predetermined date. And on that date, then you open the sealed bids, you see who meets the criteria, and then you select the lowest bid amongst the applicants that check all the boxes. Okay? Now, there are different things. There's an RFI, there's RFQs, but I'm pretty certain that that sums up what an RFP does and what the real purpose of it is. So now we kind of have foundation for my concern. And I want to talk about the live stream meeting from last week. You know, I would have had no problems with the questions that that committee was asking if it had been done before the RFP went out. Like prior to the RFP going out, the criteria and the weight of the criteria and things like that should have been discussed. Okay, so I would have had no problem then. I also might have been okay with ranking the criteria prior to the opening of the bids. So the sealed bids were open, and I was just kind of, you know, we had open conversations about changing the ranking criteria of the RFP after the company's proposals were unsealed and sitting in front of the panel. Okay, so right at their hand, each one had an individual one, they could open it. So to summarize so far, we opened sealed bids. We handed 7 different ones to each committee member, okay? And then while the RFPs were in their possession and open in their plain view, they then start talking about how they're going to set the criteria and choose a winner. And I'd like to say that's the end, but it's not. So then it was proposed that we send them home with 7 different proposals without redacting the company's names, okay? And then asking them to change or rank the criteria after reading the proposals with the company's name on them, okay? Folks, I'm not insinuating that any member of the committee is engaging in any shenanigans, but this doesn't pass any ethics test in my book, okay? And then the chair of the committee said, and I quote, and I'm not picking on him, I don't even know him, to be honest with you, but he said, I don't want to assign values and weights to categories until everybody has read the proposals. And Walter then looked at him and said, I agree, okay? I was dumbfounded. I said, what? You know, if you don't believe me, this is all on video. Now, whether or not anything weird's actually occurring, this has to be construed, this can be construed as contract fixing 101, okay? If you still don't see anything wrong with it, let me put it to you this way. Let's say a committee member has an undisclosed vested interest in company ABC, okay? That committee could then lobby the committee to rank a particularly strong criteria of ABC high and weight that criteria heavily, hence altering the vote. It just doesn't pass the eye test and leaves us wide open. And unfortunately, I'm not even done yet. The next issue, live streaming came up. And the majority of the panel was vehemently opposed to having the next meeting live streamed because we would, in quote unquote, relinquish our competitive advantage and hamper negotiations, okay? First and foremost, we operate in the sunshine, so there is no, I mean, all of our meetings, I would like to suggest, are taped from now on. Okay, second, competitive advantages. The bids are already in. Negotiations, what negotiations? The bids for services have already been sealed and opened. Okay, so what's left to negotiate? And if there's any negotiation, it's done by us up here. We're the ones who approve and don't approve contracts, okay? The meeting was an hour long, so I could go on. I just honestly can't believe what I watched. You know, we've crossed the line so many times in recent years in so many internal departments. We're lucky we're not up to our eyeballs in litigation and broken charter. You know, I promised when I got elected I was going to work to put an end to agenda politics and collusion and corruption that's been plaguing us. And today I'd like to take another step forward to getting this stuff right. For the last few years, I've sat up here and repeatedly said I do not have faith in Mr. Pierce's ability to be a charter officer and serve as our treasurer. I could rattle off a laundry list of reasons why, but I'm not here to embarrass the man. But I would like to make a motion to terminate Walt Pierce as city treasurer and subsequently finance director effective immediately. Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the committee was definitely confused, and I think part of that had to do with the coronavirus, and they were confused the fact that it was live streamed. They were told at the last minute, and we got information at the last minute that in the interest of serving the public and having the public the right to view that, we got the opinion at the last minute to have that live streamed. And so I think they were a little confused. Basically, with respect to, I've checked with other advisors, and I'm an advisor to the committee, checked other advisors on how they briefed audit committees, and they indicated because it's not based on price, there are other criteria involved, it's typical to have a matrix or a grading system or a matrix to at least come down to the top 3 firms that submitted proposals. So that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to go into too much detail in a prior meeting with the matrix because I wanted to be valued independently. Some of the committee members, I had to call them and indicate to them that I felt like they weren't honoring, that they needed to be independent. I cautioned them that they needed to keep this private and to themselves and to grade this. And yes, it is a mathematical exercise. And it is used by other committees that do this task. I was only taking the advice of other advisors who had done this in the past. It's not a typical bid where the lowest bid gets the job, because there's so many other criteria involved in that. Now, I got to admit, part of the confusion was the coronavirus. I think that made them a little nervous, and that's some of the feedback I got. I did talk to the chairman. He did make some comments that he felt weren't necessary, and I think he regretted, and after I had talked to him, that this is a mathematical exercise that has to be done and assigned. And I think he was a little confused from that standpoint. I wanted to keep this matrix as unbiased as possible. I didn't want them to have an edge on what was to be expected. I also talked to them about the weights issue that was brought up in the meeting, and I indicated that we weren't doing that. There was the consensus to rank them 1 to 5, with 1 being the best, and that was agreeable by a consensus of the committee. They also made the point of using a .50 if necessary, and that was a consensus as well. But using the weights, I disagreed with that, and I did send out an email indicating to them that that would not be used in the evaluation or in the matrix. So that's the guidance. I've given them that type of guidance going forward, and after talking to some of them individually, they now understand the matrix better. They didn't give it a chance, and basically we wanted them to go through this exercise. I didn't expect the dialogue that they gave me, and some of them were apologetic after I talked to them. Now, also, Commissioner Price brought up the fact that there is a section that says that that there needs to be 1 member of the committee or governing body.
Well, can I just interrupt you just 1 minute? Vice Mayor, there is a state statute that governs this particular function when you do an RFP for auditors. And so it is a little bit different than an RFP for,
Yes.
enterprise rental car or whoever. It has to be followed under this. And so what Walt's advising now is there is 1 section in there that deals with the chairperson, and it should be the elected official that's on.
Well, I think we might need to get interpretation from this, because it is chapter 218, section 218.391. And when I went over this with Ralph, we did read this, and I don't think at any time he indicated to me that he did advise me to get a commissioner. It was down to Commissioner Dalford and Commissioner Andrews, because they had served on the board the longest. We thought one of them would be the best. It came down to a flip of a coin, and Commissioner Dalford got that. And by the way, the wording here says, and I think this really needs to be, we need to get a legal interpretation of this. It uses the word must through this section B, and then it says that the committee must be a member, that the 1 member of the audit selection committee must be a member of the governing body of the entity, and specified in the paragraph, who shall serve as a chair of the committee. Now, in the words in this document, and this, Commissioner Price, you're an attorney, but I think we still need clarification on this, because through this document, the word must is used, and then the word may, but it says in this paragraph, may serve as a chair of the committee.
No, it says who shall serve.
I'm sorry,
as the
who
chair.
shall?
Shall is a very strong word.
Okay.
In legalese.
All right.
Stronger than may.
Well, again, that's the guidance that I got. I advised Ralph of who was on the committee and who was going to serve as chairman. I don't see any reason why the committee can't, change the chairman. I'd like to make a comment that Commissioner Andrews brought up about making a motion to fire me. I don't think that's given me a chance. I think that's uncalled for. I have invested a whole lot of time in this city, and I don't think I deserve that. I mean, I know I'm new to this board, and you're new to me. I'm willing to work with you, and if I haven't demonstrated that already, I will. But I don't think I warrant that, and I would appreciate if you at least give me a chance.
Can I respond?
Mayor?
Yeah. You started this off by blaming the coronavirus and live streaming. Now, why would the meeting have been different if it was not live streamed? Because we wouldn't have seen it? I don't really understand this.
No, I think some of the...
Hold it, Walter, hold on. You controlled the meeting. There was no real substance of when these bids got opened, when they were handed them to the people. You controlled all of that, okay? What happened with I'm not mad at the committee. The committee's just apparently thought they were doing their jobs. But you opened the bids, and then you agreed with them. You didn't stop them. Why are they home looking at bids with people's names on them and then coming up with a criteria? Hey, this was not, when did this committee get started? It got started for this audit review, for this purpose. And frankly, we never had one of these before. We didn't have it because an RFP is very simple. Okay, yes, there are criteria that have to be met, but I brought that up in what I just spoke about, by the way. I said, it is, if everybody checks the boxes, then it goes to low bid. That's it. Okay, it's really not what you're talking about of this mathematical equation game.
Commissioner,
this is a very
Commissioner and Chairman, the criteria is more involved in that.
Okay, you know what? I really don't care about the criteria at this point.
Quite frankly, that's not fair.
I think that the fact that my city treasurer is using the coronavirus. Did somebody in the panel have the coronavirus?
I said that they were confused about that from the live streaming standpoint, and when the comment was made, can we not have that at a future meeting, I did indicate that we got advice from our attorney that we would have to live stream the next meeting. So that's not a debate. That's a comment that one of the committee members made. The criteria in selecting this firm is more complicated because there's more criteria involved in this selection. It's not based on price. There's certain criteria involved. And quite frankly, it's a mathematical calculation that is used by other cities and other governmental agencies. And I worked in Hillsborough, we did the same thing, that we used a matrix and we were given the proposals, you do that matrix,
Okay,
and you come
Mr.
back
Pierce,
and you
Mr.
select
Pierce.
the top three.
Hold on. Why didn't we have this beforehand, before the bids went out? We've got a checklist of what we want. This is the criteria, and this is what you put your bids in for. It's kind of like we're doing this after the horse is out of the barn. I'm a layman on this. I didn't even know we had.
Again, Mayor,
Wait a minute, Walt.
Okay.
Please. So I was surprised to find that we had an audit committee. I don't know where I was that day, but I'm curious as to what the expertise is on our group that's on the committee, and they may be very well qualified. I don't know, but it seems that we're more and more beginning to run this city by committee, and we've got a governing body up here that runs the city. And for many years, I guess since 1947, it has been up to the commission to decide who is going to do our audits.
And Mr. Mayor, this committee was approved by the previous board. If it's up to the board that the board wants to redo the committee or assign new members, that's up to the committee to do, the board to do. But the previous board has already approved this committee, and it was under the advice of the attorney. And that's the advice I followed, quite frankly. I mean, if you guys if you want to blame me for that, I think that's a little uncalled for, because I was trying to do the best I possibly could in selecting that committee.
You selected the committee?
No, we took people who are interested in serving the committee.
Was this posted on the website? Were there applications for the audit selection committee?
I believe so, yeah.
You
I believe so, yes.
Clara, did you put applications online for an audit selection committee? Like I said, I was on the board at this time. I guess apparently I voted for this. Maybe it was like in a group or a consent agenda or something.
Yes, it was. And the previous board did vote on it.
Okay. How did these people get picked? Did you handpick them? Or did they apply for this job?
We asked for volunteers.
Who
to serve.
asked for volunteers? I don't like this vagueness. Who asked for volunteers? What was the process? And honestly, it really doesn't matter, okay? You controlled that meeting. That meeting was completely, if it wasn't unethical or against the law, it was outside the box by all. You don't send people home with these things to determine a criteria for an RFP. You can go, and you said price has nothing to do with it. You just said that. Then why call it an RFP?
I am indicating what other cities and towns do in this process. This is a different process.
I appreciate that, Walter.
It's mandated
You
by
screwed
state
up.
statute.
I know it's not in the statute that you open up the bids and tell everybody to start talking about it and then make the coronavirus and live stream your excuse for why people didn't do things the way you wanted them to. I renew my motion.
Mayor, if I may, because I had a concerned citizen call me and ask me if I saw that meeting. And I said, no, but I'll look at it. And I made a few notes too. And I have some concerns. And the first one was, how was this committee created? I went on our website. Our applications don't have a slot for an audit review committee, auditor selection procedure. I don't know whether they just made one up. I don't know who. It certainly wasn't done the normal way where people come up and say, I should be on the committee because I'm a CPA and I have this experience, or anything like that. Because I've been to the last 1 year worth of meetings here, as has John, or at least I went home and saw them if I couldn't make it. So I was very surprised to hear that one of the members has been a citizen of Madeira Beach for less than a year. Another one of the members mismanaged the Johns Pass Merchant Association fund and lost substantial money for that group. I don't know how good of a candidate that is for an audit selection company or committee. During that May 1st meeting, it was discussed ad nauseum, the qualifications matrix, for at least 20 minutes or so. And one of the members that was on the phone finally said, well, hey, I don't have that. So there was a huge discussion about it, and one of the members didn't even have the document in front of them. And it does concern me that Commissioner Douthert was not acting as the chairman, because that is absolutely required by the Florida statutes, and this is what it says. The Auditor Selection Committee for a municipality, ... must consist of at least 3 members. One member of the Audit Selection Committee must be a member of the governing body of the entity specified in this paragraph, who shall serve as the chair of the committee. I know we had a chair up there. I don't know what that gentleman's name was. Everyone was calling him Mr. Chairman, but
It was Ron Rons.
but he should not have been designated the chairman. I saw no agenda on the Madeira Beach website about this meeting. I certainly didn't get notice that this was happening. Apparently, there is no process. They're going to steam through on Monday and narrow it down to 3 firms and put up a schedule on presentations for these 3 firms. And I guess you and I up here, commissioners, aren't even going to be asked if we're available on the times and dates that they do this. I'm just a little concerned about the whole thing, the way it was done. Exactly, 2 of the members wanted to discuss the whole thing in private and without the public watching their decision-making process. I mean, and they actively sought to limit the public view. How can we do it without anyone seeing? I don't want to have this discussion in front of one of the 7 firms that put in a bid. Well, if you can't have a discussion amongst yourself to choose amongst, the people who put in a bid in front of the people who did the bid, then you're not doing a very professional job at it. I don't know what other way, I don't see why that would, and then I don't think they understand the role at all of this committee, because they seem to think that they're negotiating the auditing contract. Absolutely not. That's our job. I feel like I got cut out of the whole thing. I was very surprised to see that meeting. And it didn't help that I didn't know about this meeting until the rest of the town did. So I'm like sitting there going, what? Am I in the twilight zone here? I'm not getting noticed on anything. Things are steamrolled through. I'm surprised. I think we have no choice but to put together a different committee now. Now that all this has been exposed and we know some of the mindset of the committee members, I was a little concerned that, Mr. Pierce, you were so heavily involved in choosing the auditing company or firm that will be auditing your work. I know you're trying to be helpful with
I made
all
it
that.
very clear that I served as an advisor. That's
Yeah,
my role.
and then you took over the meeting.
No, it was the responsibility of the chairman. I felt that I tried to guide him because I did feel like he was a little confused.
Yeah. No, and I saw that. I didn't think that you were trying to usurp him or anything like that. No.
No.
And you very specifically said, I'm here just as an advisor.
I did say that several
But by the way,
times.
here's the matrix you should use and rank them 1 to 7. I think your only saving grace is that matrix was done before opening the bids. Because I don't think you personally had anything to do with, I'm just concerned about the members that are there now, that have the packets. They don't have the matrix to use. I understand that those are used by cities. And Commissioner Andrews, there is a statute that basically says how they do it. It doesn't say use a matrix, but the statute is specific on what the members should do.
But again, Commissioner, I have consulted other cities and towns that have done this, and it is a mathematical calculation to get to the final 3. That's typically what they do.
Right, but that mathematical calculation needs to be determined before the bids are open. That was the error, in my view.
But they wouldn't know the criteria and the criteria response from the firm in order to rate that until they got the proposal.
No, we put out a request of some sort. These 7 firms answered our proposal.
Yes, we put out.
That is the criteria.
Right.
So
But how they responded to the criteria that was being requested that they would be judged by. And you wouldn't know that until actually, in other words, these members of the committee, and some of them are doing this as early as this week, they have to review the RFP in order to fill out the matrix that the firms provided this information correctly.
No, they need to review the RFP in order to create the matrix so that they're all on the same page. And really, they don't have to have identical matrix.
But the matrix was put together basically by my predecessor, utilizing the criteria used in the RFP. Now again, if the board wants to select another committee, it's within your right. And if you want to do it a different way, that's fine. I have no problem with that. And I have no problem with supporting that. But I went by the guidelines that I was advised to me, and I did what was proper. I don't think I did anything malicious or anything intentionally that was wrong.
I agree. I don't think you maliciously did any of that or intentionally did any of that. And I'm sorry you got bad advice. Because it says here, the auditor selection committee shall establish the factors to use to evaluate the firms, right? They do that, not you, not the man that, I don't want you so heavily involved in the firm that's going to be reviewing your work.
I was also
I don't know how much
concerned.
simpler I can make this.
I was kind of concerned that especially on the weighting issue, I thought that was something that the committee just, had no right in exploiting that. And I talked to several of them about that. I wanted to keep this matrix and scoring as unbiased and as independent as possible. And basically, that was what I was advised to do.
Well, it got away from you, unfortunately. That meeting should have taken place a week before the bids were opened. And factors and the matrix should have been created with everybody on the committee so that they all understand what they're looking at. And then they can use their own expertise to pick what firm they thought was the number one in that particular category or number two and move on.
Commissioner, I want to make it very clear to the board, the previous board did approve and vote on this committee. So I don't want anything being said that's not true here. That the previous board did vote on this.
Right, without us knowing what they were voting on because it was part of the consent agenda.
Well, and since there is a new board, I have no problem if it's your desire to to have a new committee. I will tell you that our office is under pressure to have a new firm on board because the pre-audit is actually done in the August and September timeframe. And if there's a hidden nervousness that I've felt all along is that virus or no virus, I'm looking at certain deadlines that a new firm is going to have to comply with.
Answer me this, because I didn't read this part in the Florida statutes. Are we required to select a different auditor every so often?
It's a 5-year agreement, and John Hauser served, Wells Hauser and Schartzel served 3 years of a contract, and then within the contract, there was 2 years that were renewable. So he served 5 years. So yes, it is mandated that every 5 years you do select a new auditor. And by the way, I want to make this very clear.
Well, no, it's mandated by the contract.
Right.
Not by the Florida statutes.
Well, there is an underlining feeling that every 5 years you do go after a new auditor.
Okay.
And Commissioner, I want to be very, very, very clear too. I can work with any auditor that comes here. I have no dog in this hunt. I've gotten gotten along very good with John Hauser, and it's been a good relationship. But I have no problem if another different firm is selected. And I want to make that clear. I've approached this in an open mind.
Mr. Mayor, just point of clarification, if I may. I believe, and Walt, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a 3-year agreement with 2 one-year
2-year, 1 year.
renewals.
Sorry.
2 one-year renewals,
Yes.
okay. And just from my background, most audit contracts are the same way, 3 years with 2 one-year renewals, and then they're precluded basically from resubmitting because the whole purpose is you want to change your auditor around over a period of time so you don't have that comfort level between your staff and the auditor.
That's not a required contract, Bob. There's no 5-year required contract. There's no 3-year plus
No,
1 year.
it's-
And we could turn around and offer John Hauser a 1-year contract tomorrow to do our books again this year. There's nothing in the statute that says every 5 years you have to change auditors.
That's correct.
No, he said that's kind of the norm.
Oh, the norm. Okay.
That's
It's
the
not a
industry
statute,
norm.
so I'm not really worried about timeframes right now.
Right.
If we're in a pinch, John Hauser, you're right, John Hauser's done a great job, okay? If we're in a pinch, we'll just let John Hauser do it in a 1-year contract, and we'll go through this exercise again this year. Because as far as I'm concerned, the minute those bids got opened and you gave them to them and then started talking about criteria, all those bids are dead. They're dead. We have once that's done, we can't get a new panel. We can't get a new commission to look at bids that are already open. That's why administrative tasks like this, that's like, what are we going to do? What's the next committee? And by the way, why didn't the bid committee do this? Nobody's still explained that yet. But what happens when the next lawn contract comes up? Are we going to bring in every landscaping company around and go through them bit by bit and bring in professionals who are horticulturists to talk about this? No. Okay? This is an administrative function. It should have been an RFP, should have been done, and it could have been done quickly. Okay? We got too many chefs in the kitchen, and this is what happens. That's what happens.
And Commissioner.
It's bizarre.
and
Yes, but the
Commissioner-
coronavirus did it, or the
If the-
live stream, because they acted differently because they were on camera.
And Commissioner,
Come
if
on,
the
man.
previous board wanted to use the bid committee for this, I
The
would have
previous
had.
board came to you, Walter, and said, you know what? We need an auditor selection committee, because we don't got enough committees right now. The bid committee hasn't met, what, I haven't seen minutes for the bid committee since 2018. They were too busy? Come on, man.
Well, there's no doubt this needs to be fixed. Either we turn these over to the bid committee and have them review it, or we ask John Hauser, whom everyone seems to be happy with, for one more year and put this thing to bed right now. Because that was not,
May I proffer a suggestion?
Yes, please.
I think what I would like to do, if I have the blessing of the commission, I would like to suspend this bid, and let me talk to Mr. Hauser and see that if that's something that they would even do. We're assuming that he would, but again, like I said, this is a normal practice. But I'm sure there's a way that we could choose somebody in the interim if that would not work. And I can come back on Tuesday with some recommendations to you at our regular meeting. But for right now, I'm going to suspend this bid process, and I don't know what I have to do. I'll check with Mr. Trask and find out legally what's the best way of doing it, but that's my intention. So I might have the terminology incorrect, but I'm going to put a hold to everything here and do the research after hearing your comments and come back with a recommendation to you.
well, in the meantime, we have 7 good firms that followed the rules and gave us a bid. And
And it might be that we just turn around and go to another committee. I just want to check legally and make sure where we're at, because I don't want to have us get into a litigation situation. And
Right.
I think delaying this thing until Tuesday, isn't going to matter one way or the other. It just means us canceling the meeting that this committee has scheduled on Monday. And we would probably have to fine tune the bid committee to have an elected official on it. And if that Commissioner Douthert still wants to be on that committee, or another, that would be appointed by this commission anyhow. And we'll do this thing the right way all the way through.
I would like to introduce the idea that Commissioner Andrews become our liaison with that committee, simply because I know Mr. Andrews has a good financial background, and I think it'll be of help to a lot of us. I didn't even realize we had an audit committee, because I would have thought the bid committee, that was a part of their process.
Mr. Mayor, I don't think Commissioner Douthat did anything wrong. I mean, I'd be happy to serve on the board. I just don't think that we need this committee. This is a bid.
Well,
I just think we
yeah,
should disband
I
the
agree.
committee. And I'm sorry, Commissioner Price, I agree with you. We have 7 good firms that put in legitimate bids, but right now, those bids are exposed to, so we can't call it an RFP anymore. I guess we could take a look at them and kind of go through them, but the process has just definitely been tainted at this point. So, I like to
only with
suggest.
that one committee.
What's that?
Only with that one committee.
Well, they're open
New,
already.
fresh eyes would be
They're not a
different.
public record as yet. We can't call it
Yeah,
a public
let's see,
record
let's see
until the
what the
process is
attorney
done.
says about it. I mean, I have no issue with it. I just don't think that this should be done by committee anyway. I mean, an RFP
But the
is pretty
statute
simple.
says it has to be. That's
Well,
the
we've never
problem.
used one before. We've never used
Well, then.
there's never an audit.
well,
I don't
look,
know when the statute
Our
came
own,
into.
our own charter, hilarious. It says the Board of Commissioners may, without requiring competitive bids, designate such accountant or firm annually or for a period not exceeding 3 years to provide for the designation of any particular fiscal year, blah, 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 about selecting an independent auditor. That is counter to the Florida statutes. So this is one charter amendment that we definitely need to work on and take that out of there. Because when I looked at that, I went, why do we have the committee? This is crazy. And then the clerk very kindly said, there's a Florida statute that's got all this. And that's what, because I had no idea there was a Florida statute.
Commissioner Price, I'd just like to say one more time in my defense, I did not hide this. I did not try to do something that was, that no one knew about. I kind of broadcast this to everybody. I even tried to invite the clerk to this, and I wanted opency and transparency to this. And I didn't do anything to try to hide or try to do something to circumvent, to hire another auditor. You know, if I had a good relationship with John Hauser, like I said, we've won the GFOA award for 3 years since I've been here, every year. But quite frankly with you, I can work with anybody. And that's my feeling toward anything. And again, I don't think I did or tried to do anything malicious here.
And
I
I'm
tried to
sorry, the
involve.
previous board allowed you to choose the audit selection committee. That's like, I get to go out and choose who's going to review my own legal work. You don't think I'm going to pack it with my buddies?
Again, I tried to make it
course I
very,
am.
I tried to make it very clear, even to the board last year, I'm only serving as an advisor.
Yeah.
You know, and again, I think I mentioned that 5 times in the meeting. I serve as the advisor. Every email that goes out, I make it very clear that I'm an advisor to the committee. Unfortunately,
Well, can you answer some questions? Can you explain to us how the committee was selected?
I've got a feeling that, I have to go back, but I've got a feeling that we did ask for people who were interested in serving. And it just so happened I got those people. I had 4 that were interested. I was lacking another one, and that's when I got the advice from the attorney that one of the candidates or on the committee needed to be on the board. And that's when I went to the 2 members that have been on the board the longest, and that's when I went to Commissioner Andrews and Commissioner Dalford and asked them if they wanted to serve on the committee. And then after that, I did take it to the board, indicated who the board people were, and the board approved it.
So do we have applications from these folks?
The one thing that we didn't get was the applications, but I do have those.
So everyone who was interested, we put on the committee?
I'm sorry?
Everyone who was interested?
Yes.
Or expressed to you that they were interested, you
Yes.
put on the committee?
Yes. And I believe also that they presented their qualifications to the board. Again, I don't, I'm only following by what was advised to me, not just by some of the people that work for the city, but some of the other people that served as advisors in the same role that I've served. And I've sought guidance from that standpoint.
I believe you. I understand you were put in a bad position, and I'm sorry about that.
Let me add a couple things, please. When Walt Pierce says we're the 2 longest serving people, that wasn't exactly correct. He chose between Doug and myself based on that Commissioner Hodges' position was coming up for re-election at that time, and we did not know if someone was running against her or not, or she would still be there while this was going on.
That's
so
correct.
Then it came down to Doug and myself. Walt asked Doug, he said no. Walt asked me, I said no. We did a flip of a coin. Whoever lost, which happened to be me, ended up on the committee. Bottom line, that's how it happened.
Okay.
Second, reading through these things, Commissioner Andrews said, why aren't we taking the lowest bid? You can't take the lowest bid on these because I could put in and say, hey, I'm a one-man CPA firm. I'm going to bid $2. If that's the case, you got to take them if you're going to take the lowest bid. The qualifications is the biggest part of this. It's not really the dollar amount that they're charging, but it's more the qualifications. Have they done this before? Who have they done this? Have they done it for New York City, or have they done it for a beach town the size of Madeira Beach? These are all things that have to be looked at in these bids. It's a pain in the butt to do, I'll be very honest with you. You're going through there and say, well, he's never done a small town, but he's done St. Pete, he's done Tampa, he's done Seminole. You know, so you have to weigh all of these different factors in when we're looking at these bids. So to say we're going to take the lowest bid, you can't do that. You really, and I did not understand this until I sat down and I was on the phone with Patrick and Walt, both on Sunday, again today, trying to figure out how do I select the criteria. You know, if firm A has 32 employees and firm B has 32 employees, but how many employees work on CAFRs? Well, this firm has 2 that work on CAFRs, this one has 9 that work on CAFRs. You know, see, all those different types of criteria have got to be looked at, which I had no idea when I got into this. Trying to figure this out and setting this matrix up.
And Mayor,
and judging and grading these different firms. It's very, very hard to do. So to say that we take the lowest bid is just really the wrong answer.
John, hold on, excuse me, Commissioner Dowther, let me just correct something. I'll just read, because I actually wrote this down, so I'm going to read what I said. I didn't say that we just take low bid. That's not what I said. I said that an RFP, okay, in a nutshell, what you do is you set the criteria, you set the task at hand, and then you accept sealed bids until a predetermined date. Okay. On that date, you open the sealed bids, you see who meets the criteria, and select the low bid amongst the applicants that check the boxes. Okay, that's what I said. And what you're saying about an RFP, I get it, but now you're talking about, it's more about the qualifications. That would not be an RFP, that would be an RFQ, a request for qualifications, okay? Once we get, you can go through 3 different processes. You can start with a request for information to find out what's going on. Then you go request for qualifications to narrow down the firms, and then you go to pricing, okay? We're wrapping it up all in one ball, but I never once said that we just take the low bid. That's not it. There's a lot that goes into it. I was involved in a bunch of them here. I know the process. The point is, regardless of all of this, okay, those envelopes should not have been unsealed until the criteria was given out. And then the advisor says to the board, here's your criteria, here are the proposals, rank them as you see fit going forward. That's it. No negotiation about this criteria should be higher or how weighted this should be, okay? I'm not even talking about price yet. We didn't get to that portion. You got to get to see who checks all the boxes, okay? Whoever does, if there's a bunch of them, then it definitely goes to low bid because you made it a request for pricing, okay? Thank you.
And Madam Mayor and Commissioners, I just want to stress the point too. I was involved in this process. Commissioner Dalford says that one of the factors is public government experience is very valuable. There's a lot of CPA firms that do auditing. They do it in the private sector, though. Government is very different. Yeah. And I was involved in one of these in Hillsborough where they changed auditors after 9 years of Ernst & Young and picked a firm that did not have too much of public sector experience. And if you don't do that and go through that examination and make those determinations, then, it could come back to hurt the city and municipality.
We're not even discussing that. There are, how many, we do a cap for every year, as does every city in Florida, correct? Okay? That's a lot of CAFRs. So there's a lot of people that do them, okay? Got to be plenty of people out there with CAFR experience. We could limit, so you could put that in your request. You could limit the people that have only completed CAFRs in Pinellas County. There's got to be dozens of them, okay, that would apply for it. This isn't the only reason why I made the motion, guys, and I think you all know that. I don't want to go down, we can put this on, again, I renew my motion. If you're not comfortable with doing it today, I'd put it on the next board meeting, and I will run down the list of reasons why I think we need just a change of pace over here in the finance department. I am completely uncomfortable. I've said it numerous times in numerous public meetings. I just don't think he has the qualifications to lead us. Thank you.
And again, Mayor and Commissioners, I'm willing to work with you and alter what is best that you want. I'm about to present a financial statement next week to you that is something that you wanted, and I'm willing to conform and do whatever alterations or changes that you want. And I'm receptive to that. So if there's something that I can do and do better, I mean, just let me know and I'll do it.
I wonder if we shouldn't go with the auditor that we've got now for this year, if time is important. And if you want to have an audit committee, have them put together criteria after the fact for next year so that we've got it going in, because Mr. Andrews is right. We're doing this after the horse is out of the barn. And I don't see how it's fair to the people to start writing criteria after all the bids have been opened.
Mr. Mayor, the only thing I ask is if you give me an opportunity to speak with our interim city attorney, because our current auditor is also one of the firms that submitted a bid. So that adds a little bit of a situation to it. So I just want to make sure we're on firm ground in what we're proposing to do. And, and if we need to have a meeting before Tuesday, we can have a meeting before Tuesday. But I think since we have the meeting already scheduled Tuesday, I will be more happy we can discuss this before that meeting, have an earlier meeting if you want. But it's, whatever you want to do, but that's my recommendation. I just don't want us to get into litigation with something that we can alleviate.
Okay, that's fine with me.
Or even use these bids to select for next year's, if we use our current firm one more year. I just hate to see this work go to waste. I know it's a lot of work to
me too.
respond.
I'll work up some recommendations for you, maybe with a couple different options.
Okay.
And, we'll see if we can salvage this, and like you said, either for next year, or if there's something we can do with just doing the audit committee, I'll get all that research done for you, so.
Well, this is a prime example of why committees can cause you some problems.
Well, I think we've really gotten to where we've gone overboard on committees, and it's diluting the whole purpose we're up here. We're not running Madeira Beach by committee. We're running Madeira Beach by the city commission. And every little slice is a slice out of our duty to the residents of Madeira Beach. So,
If I may, Mr. Chairman, you do have a motion on the floor, and I think you have to give it an opportunity for a second. And if it, then you can determine what you need to do from there.
okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Andrews?
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges?
Yes.
Commissioner Douthert?
No.
Commissioner Price?
No.
Mayor Hendricks?
No. If there's no other business, this meeting is adjourned.